We've all been there. It's the middle of the night, you wake up, you check your clock, and it's 3 a.m. Why is it always 3 a.m.? Well, it seems like there might be a little bit more to this phenomenon than you might have originally thought. Nicknamed the witching hour, it's thought that this is the time the veil between worlds is lifted, therefore when you are most likely to encounter the paranormal. Well, grab your rosaries cause I have got one doozy of a list for you today. So get ready for the top 10 demonic possessions that took place at 3 a.m. Starting us off at number 10, Julia. In 2008, Dr. Richard Gallagher, a psychiatrist and professor at the New York Medical College, revealed a haunting case of demonic possession. Now, it is a little unusual for a medical professional to be the backer, as usually they are prone to associate the symptoms with mental health disorders, but Julia was a special case. Dr. Gallagher said she would change her voice drastically out of nowhere, from a high-pitched squeal to a deep, manly guttural sound. She was known to speak in tongues and reveal personal knowledge about others in the room that had never been divulged to her. Often she would levitate off the ground and was even able to throw objects across the room with her mind. At a loss for what to do, Dr. Gallagher even attempted calling in a priest to perform an exorcism, but this made matters even worse, as it clearly bothered the entity possessing Julia, with the demon saying they will be sorry for their actions to try and get rid of it. Apparently Julia continues to display signs of possession to this day and terrifies all that try to fix her condition. Next up at number 9, Clara Germana Cele. In 1906, a South African girl began terrifying her family after one fateful night when she was allegedly possessed by a demonic entity. Now, no one knows just what happened that night, but the next day she began to exhibit superhuman strength and throwing nuns around the room with a simple flick of her wrist, while making inhuman noises. Clara would speak in languages she was not known to have any knowledge of, and after a 2-day exorcism where she floated several feet in the air and attempted to strangle the priest, she was finally freed from the demon. Let's just hope that the demon died and didn't get passed along to anyone else. Next up at number 8, Sleepless Nights. The year was 2011, the time was 3 a.m., and this Reddit user was lying in bed when out of nowhere they lost complete control of their limbs. They could speak, they could see, but their body was being jerked around all over the place. They said their feet and fingers were tapping, shoulders couldn't stop shrugging, and when they asked into the empty room if anyone was there, their right hand raised into the air and gave a thumbs up. With no control to stop it, they just laid there hoping and praying the demon would leave their body. And luckily for whoever this was, by morning whatever had possessed them seemed to be gone for good. Let's just hope that whatever it was doesn't come back with a vengeance. Coming in at number 7, Sleep Talker. While some seem to have chalked up this haunting encounter to sleep talking, Reddit user Adventure Time believes he was possessed and has no recollection. He says his girlfriend told him she awoke just before 3 a.m. because he wouldn't stop picking up his head to look out the window. When she asked him what was wrong, all he said was to go back to sleep. He was speaking in a strange voice unlike his own, and when she asked him things like when was his birthday or his parents' names, he couldn't answer. His girlfriend asked if he was going to hurt her, to which he replied no, but when asked if he would protect her, he stayed silent, creeping her out even further. She detailed that her boyfriend kept repeating that all would be done at 3 a.m. and just as promised, as soon as the clock struck 3, he went right to sleep with no memory of the haunting event, but truly terrified that whatever it was that possessed him that night might just return, and this time might not be so kind. Coming in at number 6, the Green Aura Man. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis? It's this awful phenomenon where essentially you are fully awake and conscious but unable to move or speak. And if that wasn't bad enough, some experience what has been coined as a sleep paralysis demon. And one Reddit user claims that she was possessed by one of those very entities. At 3 a.m., the demon with a green aura smiled at her, and then suddenly she began to feel very angry. The anger lasted days, and she began to feel violent towards her boyfriend. When she went to tell her boyfriend she needed help, she heard the spirit speak to her saying, "You wanted to see me, so here I am. Look at me." She apparently sought out the help from her grandmother, but nothing else about her is known. Was she able to free herself from the demon, or does she remain trapped and possessed to this day? Coming in at number 5, a real life Annabelle. Like something out of a horror movie, this husband and wife paranormal investigation team claims that they have a Raggedy Ann doll that is possessed. Their wild claim came after video surveillance footage from 3 in the morning showed the doll moving out of its display cabinet and flipping over a Ouija board. Lee and Lindsay run a museum of haunted objects from their home, and while there, Lindsay has felt things grab her by the neck and even witnessed objects flying across the room. The doll, which they acquired in 2019, is an identical copy of the notorious Annabelle doll from the 1970s that's inspired the Conjuring series, and they believe their doll to be possessed, just as that one is believed to be. According to the couple, after they received the doll, they were in a nearly fatal car crash, and on a separate occasion, Lindsay was hospitalized for nearly a week with doctors having no clue what was wrong with her. Sounds to me like they have a demon living in their house, so let's just hope they can get rid of it before it's too late. Coming in at number 4, the Perron family. This family was actually the inspiration for the Conjuring series, but sadly their fate is much darker than the films. Just like any good horror movie, it all started with a beautiful, too good to be true house. After only a few nights there, the mother, Carolyn, began seeing the ghost of a woman who had taken her own life in the house and became very afraid. The family decided to enlist the help of paranormal investigators who came to perform a seance, but unfortunately things took a turn when they uncovered the dark history of their home. Previously it was owned by a witch who sacrificed her firstborn to Satan and then took her own life to complete the ritual, and then out of nowhere, Caroline became possessed by the spirit, writhing and screaming while her whole family watched in horror. Allegedly, the investigators tried to exorcise the demon out of the mother, but unfortunately were not able to, and the father kicked them out of the house. Unable to move due to financial constraints, the family remained and were haunted for the next several years by the demonic entity, scarring them for life. Coming in at number 3, camping trip disaster. Now, no names were mentioned for this story, so to make it easier, I'm gonna make them up. One night on a camping trip with a few other friends, one friend, let's call her Megan, witnessed what she can only describe as a demonic possession. After a long day, the group got ready for bed and all climbed into their tent. Megan awoke in the middle of the night to find one of her friends, let's call her Sarah, standing up in the corner of the tent, slapping her arms hysterically to her sides in a trance-like state, while maniacally laughing and crying simultaneously. Sarah began to examine her body like she'd never seen it before, and Megan, creeped out, tried to ignore it and went back to sleep. The next morning all seemed to be fine, but that night things got creepy again. Sarah and Megan were out for a walk when Megan witnessed the switch in her eyes as she creepily smiled at her and said, "I'm not listening," before crawling around on all fours and taunting Megan the whole night. Terrified, Megan ran away before the demon could get to her, and although she has remained in contact with Sarah, trying to get her help, she refuses to see her in person since the horrifying weekend. Next up at number 2, Robbie Mannheim. Robbie Mannheim was actually the real-life inspiration for The Exorcist. In the 1930s, when Robbie was just 13 years old, he decided he wanted to contact his deceased aunt. Now, he made 2 very bad decisions. 1, he did so in the middle of the night, and 2, he used a Ouija board. Now, not long after his 3 a.m. seance, strange things started happening to Robbie. Furniture would dart across the house, religious art on the walls would vibrate or fall when he walked by, and classmates even reported his desk flying across the room. Priests eventually agreed to perform an exorcism on the boy, but the demon was not so keen to leave. Allegedly, he attacked the priests with superhuman strength when they tried to free him of the spirit, but thankfully the priests won this one and the demon was expelled. So, moral of the story is, stop messing around with Ouija boards, especially if it's the middle of the night. You might not be as lucky as Robbie. And last up, in our number 1 spot, Michael Taylor. Back in 1974, a beloved family man without any previous criminal history seemed to suddenly change overnight into a different person. After the fateful night, he was all of a sudden flirting with a woman at his church, and after she turned him down, he became extraordinarily violent. It was so out of character for Michael that the church decided to exorcise him, believing that he was possessed. They strapped him down and allegedly exorcised a whopping 40 demons from his body, but it would turn turned out that that wasn't enough, as still 3 demons remained inside him. That night, Michael brutally killed and dismembered his wife and dog, and upon being arrested, told the police he was possessed by a force compelling him to destroy everything living within his house. He was sent to a psychiatric facility, but it seems like those last 3 demons remained attached to the man for the rest of his life. Well, there you have it, guys. My name is Kennedy. I hope you liked this video. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.